Hey, I like that crazy piece of meat. I was watching too closely, but he recognized me right away. Runkendel's Sword Garden. Jonah spoke while gesturing to describe the appearance of Reikiman, the great battle king. All of Runkendel's leadership, including Jean, were listening to her explanation. Not in a day. To finish off a major branch of Kinsalo in less than 30 minutes. The leaders nodded at Brother Tana's words. The land of the Beastmen is the land where Kinsalo's former headquarters is located. Although the residences of most of the major forces and executives were moved to the current new headquarters after the Sword Emperor crusade, the destroyed branch was clearly a very important location within Kinsalo. Of course, higher-level troops were deployed in Kinsale, and even Barakt and Bardray were on standby when the enemy tribe attacked. However, they were unilaterally annihilated by just one group of enemy tribes. Only Barakt and Bardray barely escaped. Not only did he recognize me, he even pushed me to tell you the story, so I thought he would kill me, but I thought he would get tired, so I held back. Oh, that guy called Dea, to King, was it enough for you to kill him? You can ask without being so scared. Hey Tana. The youngest is the best, but after watching you these days, I think you guys are kind of cute too. Thank you, sister. There's nothing to be thankful for, it's just a little cute. Yep. If I wanted to kill that fish, I could have killed it. Eating red meat didn't even look good. But something felt wrong. He's obviously weaker than me, but if we fight, I'll get seriously hurt too? That may be because of the fighting spirit that only Riki possesses. Jonah. The energy of the great fighting king. Yes, since you have great senses, you were unconsciously wary of Riki's special abilities. Unlike the fighting kings of the Red Ming clan, the fighting kings of the Red Ming clan are not those who have become strong through their own abilities. According to Amaris, the great fighting kings of the Jiakmiang tribe were beings who were fused with the fortress. The ranks of the Jiakmiang clan are divided into two classes, plain warrior and two first-class fighting kings and great fighting kings. And among the first-class fighting kings, those who are strong enough to withstand fusion are selected as great fighting kings. What abilities does the Deity King, who is fused with the enemy tribe's fort, gain? It varies from castle to castle, but the transformation of summoning and castle painting is common to all great fighting kings. Summoning is literally the ability to summon troops within a castle, and castle painting is a combat-type transformation. It's just a castle painting in name, and it's just in the form of a beast. Perhaps the threat Jonah felt was the fortification. There won't be enough recovery yet to use summoning. Hey, does that mean the meat becomes a bigger meat? But even if it had that ability, it's strange that Barakt couldn't even properly resist. He had faced off against the Rinpa brothers in the past, but he was not so consumed by fear. It showed my pride as a military officer. That's probably because of the unique abilities of Reikiman's fortress. According to my memory, his strength was ranked 3rd or 4th among the great fighting kings, and even the plain warriors of the Qingming tribe at that time were unable to come to their senses whenever they encountered Reikiman. These are the people who fought well without being discouraged even when they faced a stronger fighting king. In other words, Reikiman possessed the ability to cause greater fear to other beasts than among the great fighting kings. It seems that the enemy tribes called its unique ability Beast Slayer. In any case, that is probably why the beastmen called Barakt and Bardray are more intimidated than before. You have to be at the level of the fighting king of the Qingming tribe to completely overcome it. The reason Barakt and Bardray were able to fight was probably because they were at a close level. It seems like a specialized ability to slaughter the weak. It's a bit similar to me and Haytona, right? Miscellaneous and low-level enemies are probably more afraid of us than Jin. There you go again, 10th rider. You should call me Sagaju, not Jean. Is this a place where brothers play together, or is it the Sword Garden meeting hall? Sorry boss. Such a stupid mistake. Please post a congratulatory message after the meeting. If it were like the old days, it wouldn't have ended like this. At Leet's words, the faces of the leaders except Jean became even more tense. Even the generous Balkas cleared his throat and glanced at me. Yes. Well, the Chongmayang Pyeongjiansa can never be considered weak, but there are some similarities with Daytona's words. In the first place, the Jiakmiang tribe itself had that impression in my time. The average force was clearly weaker than that of the Qingming tribe, but everyone was more afraid. because it was unspeakably cruel and violent. From the Great Fighting King onwards, it could not be said that he was weaker than his Qingming counterpart. From Kinjalo's perspective, it was nothing short of a nightmare that Rekimen was the first to wake up among the Great Fighting Kings. From now on, no matter which branch Rekimen went to, he would be completely impossible to deal with the beasts alone. Not only would Riki go there in person, but even casual fighters couldn't handle it without Barakt and Badray. Anyway, right now, as you expected, the enemy tribes have started hunting mainly Kinzalo, but I'm worried. I never expected that Rekimen Hog could act so quickly. If there are more fortresses left, he will fill his prey in an instant and wake up his compatriots. From now on, there is no way the enemy tribe will continue to threaten only Kinzal. The people they held the greatest grudge against were Jin and Amaris. When enough power returns, the Jiakmyong people will be the first to target the Bamul alliance. It would be better to assume that they will wake up other enemy tribes much faster than we expected. And in the future, the powers of the demons that Kinzalo was hiding will begin to be revealed. Jin said, no matter how many beastmen there were, they would not be able to directly deal with the enemy tribe, so the power of the demon tribe had no choice but to stand out. But according to Yona's story, Barakt and Bardray seemed concerned about the power of the demons within Kinzal becoming stronger. Moreover, even though the main branches have been destroyed, Orgel and Zephyrin are not directly moving. I see. It's strange that those two aren't moving, as Sagaju said. Since Rekimen mentioned Sagaju's name to Barakt, he should have come immediately to find out the situation. As Mary spoke, Jean smiled. For some reason, I have a feeling that Kinjalo will come to us soon and ask for a trade. Let's wait a little while and think about what to expect from them. Kinjalo New Headquarters. When Joe came out of the treatment room, the waiting executives stood up and looked at him. What happened to Joe? Bishkal spoke and Joe nodded. Bardray's arm cannot be recovered, Vice Captain. But I think we can attach the Master's arm with Bouvard's and mine's abilities. It's a blessing in disguise. Mr. Barakt, are you still in shock? When asked about Barakt, Joe's expression darkened. Joe knew that Barakt would be happy if something went wrong. It was because Barakt was the one who gave him unnecessary disparagement every time and did not treat him like a human being. But for some reason, seeing Barakt unable to come to his senses after being broken by the strange guys, I felt an unexpected desire for revenge. Exactly. He said he was the commander-in-chief of Kinjalo, but he looked like he was struggling with a sense of defeat. When the leader wakes up, I will have to ask him to hand over command to the demons. In the first place, it didn't make sense for lesser beasts to control us demons. Shut up, Bracken Bakma. Prince Chagall is still there, so why are you talking so carelessly? When Joe shouted, the demon called Bracken was dumbfounded. Hey Joe, didn't you hate Barakt? Bracken, no matter what anyone says, the commander-in-chief of Kinzalo, as decided by the leader, is Varrict. Right now, he's just recovering from his long-awaited defeat. I will stand up again soon and kill them. Anyway, I don't know what the human race is. Anyway, I will make a suggestion to the leader. How can we trust and fight with people who are not worthy of the name of the Red Tiger King or the Dijiansa? Get out of here. Here we go. Go. But from now on it would be better for you to be visible to the demons, not the Baraks. I don't know why you take care of Barakt when you're always criticized and ignored like a bug. Joe glared at Bracken's back with his eyes wide open. Other executives who were watching also exchanged glances, as if they were surprised by Joe's appearance. Wow, Uncle Joe. It was cool. I am so impressed with this Margila. Humph. It was just difficult to see the demons trying to gain power by tricking us. I think Mr. Barakt will use this defeat as an excuse to overcome a wall. I can see everything, he. Oh, Miss Margila, do you really think that's the case? Executives were aware that Margila's ability had recently become stronger. She saw what others could not see and felt what others could not. It's sad that one of your branches was completely lost, but it's not that bad if you think of it as the value of Uncle Barakt and Uncle Bardray's awakening. Still, I feel sorry for the dead members, so I have to do my best to perform ancestral rites starting today. I will also analyze the techniques of those enemy clans and make Kinzalo stronger. Good. But before that, I think we need to get help if we don't want to fail. Are you going to fail? Yes, I think we are in a situation where we could really fail. I need the strength to hold out until the leader and the Archduke wake up. Of course, destruction is limited to the Beastman troops. But if all the Beastmen die, we won't be able to wake Javier later, right? Are the demons currently on standby not enough? I don't think it will be enough until the Phantom Master and his army arrive. However, we don't know when the Wanmajang will come, and those so-called Jiakmyongs could attack us again tomorrow. Vishkal answered on behalf of Margila. Vice Captain, what should I do? Like Margila said, we need strength. A support force with the mobility and force to respond to enemy tribes whenever they appear. Who can provide such reinforcements? Oh really? To Joe's question, Bishkal sighed and answered, the head of Runkendal. We will proceed with the deal with him. Tychon. Jean received a communication from the Sword Garden and immediately came here. It was less than a day after the meeting on the Jiakmyong incident ended. It's been a while, Lord Vishkal. When Jean got off the Red Owl and offered to shake his hand, Vishkal held his hand with an expressionless face. Jean did not miss the tension hidden beneath his expression. Anyway, what's happening all of a sudden? Last time, it must have been about a month. At that time, our coalition contacted Orgel and said they wanted to meet him, but is it really now that you've come to give us an answer? I need to meet Orgel King. He must know Sana. If you come right away like last time, there will be a fuss, so please send the letter immediately. Immediately after meeting Sana at the Tower of Stories, the Baemul Alliance had requested a meeting with Kingelo to dig up information about Sana. However, Kingelo did not respond, and in the meantime Amaris woke up Orgel and Zephyrin fell into unconsciousness and were even attacked by the enemy clan. From the beginning, Jean was pointing out that point and embarrassing Vishkal and Kinzelo's executives. Mr. Jean, I couldn't answer that question right away because you were busy. As Vice Captain, I will apologize on your behalf. Aha, then Lord Vishkal is not here to answer my letter, but to talk about another matter. Is that right? Exactly. Let me explain again. You just ignored the request to meet with the head of Runkendal and the head of the Baemul Alliance with the excuse that you were busy, but now you are in a position where you urgently need to express your regrets to me, so you have shamelessly come here without warning. You mean? Bishkal kept his expression as he spoke inwardly. There was nothing wrong with Jin's sarcastic voice. Even if you think so, I don't think you have anything to say. I will take responsibility for my disrespect in any way. Jean looked at Vishkal for a moment and organized his thoughts. It looks like Kingelo's situation is very bad. It's clear that there's a problem with Orgel and Zephyrin, and it's not just because of the Red Mystery. Kingelo appeared much more quietly than Jean had expected. You said you would take responsibility somehow. What would you do if I even asked for Buvar's head? Not that pig bird. I cannot give you his head, but I will give you both my arms. You can't do that, brother. Margila called out to Bishkal in an exaggerated voice. Jean burst into laughter as he saw him take out a handkerchief and wipe his dry eyes. I'm just saying this, so don't be so determined. I am not from the Jiakmyong tribe, so why would I take a person's neck or arm and use it for something? When the word Jiakmyong came out, Vishkal's frown narrowed. It's okay to pay for rudeness. I also almost ended up in a showdown with Orgel when I went to Kinzelo's new headquarters, so let's just pretend it never happened. Thank you for understanding. Instead, I hope today there will be very honest and open conversations. If you show that you are truly willing to give up anything just as you are willing to give up both arms, I will listen positively and generously. However, if you try to calculate or use tricks because you don't want to lose more, Kinzelo will have nothing to gain today and only lose. Vishkal nodded heavily. Looking back, Kinzelo had always made a losing deal with Jean, but today he would make an especially unfair deal. I will be careful. Okay. I kept the guest standing. There's a nice spot in the garden. Let's have a cup of tea and talk. As we sat down at the garden table, cookies and refreshments were served. As soon as Ainaz sat down, she looked like she was taking cookies to give to Buvar, and when Bishkal saw her, he had to calm down his boiling inside. It was fortunate that Bouvard did not come in a bundle. Okay, first of all, I wonder why you came instead of Orgel or Zephyrin. You two are currently unconscious. As Jean warned, Bishkal obediently told the truth. Unconscious. It's been about 10 days. It happened suddenly without any warning. As soon as Jean heard those words, he thought that it coincided with the time when Amaris woke up. When asked about the exact date, the time when the two people lost consciousness and when Amaris woke up were exactly the same. I think it has something to do with Amaris. Why? Amaris said he did not know the two people. I'll have to ask Kingelo when he gets back if he has any guesses. Since Orgel and Zephyrin were unconscious, it was not possible to immediately confirm whether they knew Amaris. Jean shook his head with a sad expression. I thought he had gotten a little stronger since I last met Vale, but it looks like Orgel is still not feeling well. Are you showing any signs of waking up? After the demons examined him, I heard he was in remission. They also said it was not a physical problem but a psychological shock. I see. I understand why Orgel and Zephyrin could not come forward even though the Beast Land branch was destroyed. Oh, you wonder how we know that? I sent Sister Jonah to watch over you. And we met them before Kingelo. What are they? Honestly, I thought they might have something to do with it. But their methods are far from progress. That's right. The enemy clan is not the Bamul Alliance Runkendal or my brothers. We are an ancient fighting race that was awakened by chance. An ancient fighting race that awakened by chance? It looks like Kingelo has no information about the enemy clan. The Jiakmyong tribe resides in a similar area to the demon tribe. What is that? Jean pointed his finger at the ground. Underground. The Jiakmyong people live underground. You're not going to say you didn't know that demons live underground, right? Bishkal hid his surprise. This was because there was no way to guess how Jean knew that the gate to the demon world existed underground. Kingelo was completely unaware of the current meeting between Jean and Shenu and did not know exactly what happened at the Tower of Stories. I will leave it to your imagination as to how I first met the Jiakmyong tribe and why they killed their executives. However, I don't want Kingelo to think that the Red Mystery Clan started their activities because of me and that they suffered damage as a result. They are the ones who have been messing with the underground for a long time. Bishkal could not answer and waited for his next words. From what I heard, it is assumed that you Vishkal are in charge of opening the door to the demon world within Kinzel. As soon as Vishkal heard those words, he remembered what Octavia said in the Soda Desert. It's a demon. Did it really open the door? This is your power, Vishkal Ivliano. At the time, Tower Keeper Hito was a key executive of Zippel. Did he tell Lord Jean the information he heard from Octavia when he transferred to the Bamul Alliance? Back then and now it was a pure misunderstanding that Vishkal was a person with powers related to the Gate of Demon World. For Bishkal there was finally an opportunity to resolve the misunderstanding. I have no abilities related to the Gate of Demon World. The information I heard was probably Octavia Ziffel's misunderstanding. The leader is entirely in charge of matters related to the demon world. Then what about Miss Margila? Same goes for my brother. Yuria. Immediately Yuria confirmed the authenticity with her authority, and a blue string came out. Then how does Orgel bring demons from the demon world? What was omitted from the question was how to bypass the entrance to the underworld guarded by Amaris. Bishkal did not understand the omission. This was because I did not know any information about Amaris. I haven't yet told you what I'm asking you to do. If you want to ask for information about the demon world, it seems like the priority is to listen to the request first. Tell me. Please share with us all the information you know about the Jiakmyong people. All information is impossible. Instead, I can share with you all the information revealed by the recording magic performed within Kingelo's domain with permission. And please deal with the enemy tribes on my behalf until the leader wakes up. Depending on what the Lord is saying just now, it could be interpreted that our Kingelo has no power and that the Bamul Alliance is doomed if it uses all its might right now. That's a pretty dangerous statement. Was Kingelo unable to handle even some of the enemy clans? It's just to stop the slaughter of prisoners. There are demons, so it's not impossible to stop them, but now that the leader is away they lack mobility. According to our research, they use spatial movement. As you know, beastmen can't fight back against them. Well, even Barakt and Bardray were terrified. With a limited number of people, the Jiakmyong people were practically natural enemies. Would you accept my offer? Anyway, we can learn about the enemy tribe by helping Kinsalo, so I don't think it's such a bad deal. If you agree, you will be able to hear how Orgel is using the demon world. Jin pretended to think for a moment and then nodded. In fact, from Jin's perspective, it was a deal with nothing to lose. Since the Jiakmyong tribe would be focusing on hunting beasts for the time being anyway, Kinsalo's permission was needed to perform recording magic in the area. Also, even if he didn't help, Jin didn't think that Kinsalo would really end up failing to stop the enemy tribe. As Bishkal said, there would only be serious losses to the Beastman troops. Above all, Jin was wary of the possibility that the enemy clans could become allies with Kinsalo. Even though their doctrines are different, like the sun god denominations, they all have the same desire for the resurrection of the sun god. Okay, but I'd like to add one last condition. Please speak. Jin grinned and pointed at Anas with his eyes. I would like you to calculate the cost of the cookies Anas Kaligo took. Was this for money? Anas looked at Jin in surprise. How can I calculate it? Last time Kinsalo rejected my steel deal, even though he offered to pay me several times more than the market price. They ended up selling that steel to Jeep, not us. The idea was to hand over the steel that failed at that time in exchange for the cookies. Vishkal could only grit his teeth and nod. Drakad Jeep headquarters. Baradin looked at the seated executives and was silent for a while. Except for Ronald Octavia and the new pureblood Jeepers brought by Baradin, all the executives were feeling afraid. This was because there were corpses lined up in the hallway outside the conference hall. After the Tower of Stories incident, naturally there was a chaotic atmosphere throughout Jeep. There were only rumors circulating without any official announcement. Meanwhile, Baradin convened the family council for the first time. Just before this meeting, comprised only of pureblood Jeepers and elders, Baradin carried out a short and intense purge. Those who had any doubts about the Tower of Stories incident were instantly killed. Those who died were unable to properly resist the sudden attack. But even if resistance had been possible, the result would have been the same. In the Holy Land and the Drakar headquarters, Baradin's power was truly absolute. There was a brief disturbance. It was a choice to lead the family efficiently as the new head of the family, so I would appreciate your understanding even if it was uncomfortable to see. The executives looked at each other. There was a brief commotion as he killed more than 30 executives in an instant and sat down. Moreover, Baradin was telling him to go away. With that expression, Kiliak's life or death no longer mattered. Whether he lives or dies, it doesn't change the fact that Baradin lost the position of head of the family. You probably have a lot of questions. What happened to the former head of the family and Khadun, and how will our Jeep run in the future? As soon as these parts are sorted out, my sister and newly appointed consul Satran Zyphel will help me sort them out. We plan to announce it externally soon. Satran Zyphel looked at the executives and nodded slightly. Not only she but all the purebloods brought by Baradin had been appointed to the highest positions. From the existing executives' perspective, it was truly tyranny following treason, but no one could protest. Baradin was disillusioned by that sight. Of course, if you attack them, they will kill you and trample you, but I felt that this was clearly revealing the weak nature of Jeep. It was because it had been reigning as the world's best for too long. It was time to bring back the family's original creed that a Zyphel should not be strong because of its name but a Zippel because it is strong. By tearing everything up from the roots. So let's not talk about that now, but about recent agenda items. While we were reorganizing our families, our enemies began to make strange movements. All right. First of all, Kinsalo recently suddenly and unilaterally stopped trading steel with us. Of course, the Bamel Alliance Jean Runkendal is behind this. It is a strange thing, Matriarch. Kinsalo also needs to keep the Bamul Alliance in check, so there is no reason to suddenly give them steel. It's not like we were buying it at a cheap price. When an executive opened his mouth, Baradin nodded. If there are people who cannot accept change, there are also people who adapt quickly. Furthermore, our spies have recently found out that Kinsalo's most important branch, the Land of the Beastmen, has collapsed. I think maybe the Bamul coalition attacked Kinsalo in retaliation for the steel deal, and Kinsalo, unable to withstand the pressure, gave up the steel. That's an interesting story. But Kinsalo is not one of those friends who will just bow to that level. If the Bamel coalition had attacked, it is more likely that an all-out war would have started immediately. Then what did the matriarch say? That Jean Runkendal was behind it? I think there must have been some kind of deal between Jean and Kingelo, and that deal may be related to the destruction of the branch that Elder Ritten just mentioned. When you say it's a deal, are you really saying that Kingelo asked Jean Runkendal for support? That's the way I see it. A force other than us and the Bamul Alliance Runkendal and the Empire attacked Kingelo, and Kingelo asked Jean for support. But other than those forces, there is no group powerful enough to attack Kingelo right now, is there? Fortunately, the Beemont royal family has some potential, but I don't think they will throw such an unreasonable move. The remnants of the Beemont royal family had lost contact with Jeep after the Battle of the Gods and disappeared. It won't be the remnants of the imperial family. I feel like a new force has emerged. A new force? For a new power, the only way would be if neutrals join forces. Now, except for the leaders of the major powers, there is no one who can gather neutrals right. There is no person, but it is not impossible if Joshua Runkendal, whose life or death has not been properly confirmed after the Battle of the Demon Gods, has appeared. But if it's Joshua, there's no way Runkendal can stay still. For a while, many words were exchanged among executives. Baradin watched and shared with them the information he had recently learned. Not even Joshua Runkendal. If he has begun to use the powers of chaos, my power will be able to detect it. So I think it's the work of the underworld. Underworld? One of the materials that no one except the head of the family can access contains information about the underworld. Originally, it was impossible to check the reading room without Shenu's permission, but Baradin had broken the seal using Sana's power. The space we call the demon world was underground in this world. And at the boundary between the surface and the underground, a being called the Big Snake and some ancient races are sealed. The executives, excluding the closest aides, were at a loss as to how to react to the sudden story. It almost made me wonder if Baradin was crazy. However, the next moment Baradin took out a scroll from his pocket and unfolded it towards the executives. The scroll contained the relevant content and a picture depicting the boundary between the above and below ground and Amaris. A seal of fire glowed at the bottom. What that seal means is absolute faith. The executives listened to Baradin's words without further doubt. So I decided that it was a demon or another ancient race that attacked Kingelo this time. However, most of the demons revealed so far belong to Kingelo, so more weight is given to the ancient race. In other words, what the matriarch said was that an underground ancient race was released from its seal for some reason, and struck Kingelo. And Kingelo has requested support from the Bamul Alliance. That's right. So what we need to do going forward is to recognize them. Who are the people who attacked Kingelo? Why was Kingelo the ground force they first attacked? Why did Kingelo ask for support from Jean and not us? What are Orgel and Zephyrin doing? As Baradin organized, the executives nodded. Please have the executives immediately issue orders to their subordinates. Publish an article pretending that everything that came out of today's meeting was true. And the Ghost Commander should link up with the Archon and send the Ghost Captain and the mages of the Archon to each branch of Kingelo. All right. We are now inevitably behind in information compared to the Bamul Coalition and Kingelo. We must find a way to close the gap and effectively counter underground forces at all costs. Those who achieve results will be given the opportunity to learn the family's arcane magic. Like Runkendal's decisive battle, arcane magic is not something that just anyone can learn. It could only be learned if one had magical affinity equivalent to that of a pure-blood Ziffel. Although it requires a huge amount of goods, the research department has developed a technology that can stably increase magic affinity. I hope everyone runs hard. The first day of October 1803. Jean sat in the barracks set up on the outskirts of Kingelo 3rd Branch and sipped tea. Are you here? Jean said as he looked at Bishkal, who came into the barracks. After the deal was concluded, he stayed up all night for several days checking out Kingelo's branches. That was because Jean didn't help. The Bamel Alliance could only wait as a standby team. Jean and Cirrus are waiting at 2 expected attack points. It looks like he hasn't shown up here yet. Exactly. It would have been nice if either me or Cirrus had been in Branch 7 during the last attack, but it turned out to be a shame. 2 days ago, while Jean and Cirrus were waiting at Branches 3 and 5, the Red Mystery Tribe attacked Kinzelo's Branches 7. As a result, no traces of resistance could be found on the bodies of the prisoners in the 7th Extermination Branch. It was crazy for Kinzelo to lose another branch even after making such a poor deal with Jean. Moreover, Orgel and Zephyrin were still unable to wake up. It's possible that Zephyrin was one of Ameri's heads. Jean shrugged and recalled what Ameris had said. Ameris said that if Zephyrin really lost consciousness because of her, that would be the only reason. It is also said that the reason Orgel fainted was because he was mentally connected to Zephyrin. While I was touring the branches, I checked the newsletter and saw an article saying that Baradin Ziffel had become the new head of Ziffel. Baradin? Exactly. Besides, look at this. The first thing Baradin did as soon as he became head of the family was to reveal the underworld and suspect Kinzelo's relationship with the Bamul Alliance. This is the news that just came out. Jin's eyes widened. The announcement that Baradin has become the new head of the family is shocking enough, but are there suddenly suspicions about our dealings with the underworld? Because of this, there is a lot of talk going on among my demons in Kinzel right now. I have no clue whatsoever. For a moment. Jin's eyes became sharp as he looked at the newsletter. You guys came at the right time, Bishkal. Then he got up from his seat and lightly relaxed his body once. Jiakmyong tribe? Bishkal belatedly came to his senses but did not feel any special energy. This was because his skills were significantly lower than Jin's and he did not have a bright heart. What Jean read was the explosive brain energy unique to the light heart that suddenly spread near Branch 3. Exactly. I guess I'll have to check the newsletter after I take care of those. I'll go first, so follow me. Quad light. Red-hot lightning was raining down on the main building of Kinzelo Branch 7. It was a thunderbolt dropped by enemy tribes that had just completed their spatial jump. Just like when the Beast People's land branch was destroyed, the fight would normally end the moment the enemy's lightning struck. What followed next was supposed to be a one-sided hunt. However, unlike before, the enemy tribes could not immediately take the loot. A blue thunderbolt much larger than the one they had just dropped was ringing throughout the 7th branch. The enemy tribesmen who were about to enter the building stopped moving and turned their heads. Compatriot and Olin, this power is him. Jean Runkendal has arrived. As the enemy tribes roared at once, the air nearby became distorted. Kinzelo prisoners nearby fell to the ground, blood pouring from their ears. The optical hearts were shining red. The culprit who killed his compatriots and a descendant of the Qingming tribe who must be torn to death has appeared. Moreover, unlike the day Simit and his gang first came to the surface, now there are more than 30 compatriots with them, and all of them are led directly by the great fighting king Rekiman Hog. It was time to pay for the blood of our compatriots. A lot of people have gathered. Jean, who appeared in the front yard of Branch 7, looked around at the Jiakmyong tribe and said, the Jiakmyong people were lined up behind Rekiman. Because Jean moved so quickly, Bishkal had not yet arrived. Jean and Rocky's eyes collided. From what I see, you are a man named Rekiman Hog, the great fighting king of the Red Mystery Tribe. Why come out and make a fuss if you're just going to stay underground? I definitely warned Simit that it would be better for the Jiakmyong tribe to live in hiding from now on. We have lived without distinguishing between above ground and underground. I was just sleeping because I was caught by a large snake. Since the original owner has returned, wouldn't it be right for you to quietly leave the place? Okay. You're not the type of person who communicates well, Riki. I think the friend named Simit had a bit of a sense of reality. Can't Riki recognize that his opponent is much stronger than you? Srong. Jean picked Sigmund. To me, you just look like a strange hybrid. Humans and Qingming people. Seeing it in person, it's a more bizarre combination than I imagined. Rekiman also formed 2 huge swords with red brains. He had a noticeably stronger energy than when he faced Bard Ray and Barakt. This was the result I had obtained while hunting Kinzelo. Since last time, you have been calling me the Qingming clan, and this person is the king of the 13th battle of the Great Ming clan. King, you have never been able to claim that name. You will find out why today. I'll show you what the gap is. Suik dash. As soon as he finished speaking, the blue thunderbolts that had gathered in the sky returned to Jin and shook the ground. The fighters swallowed dry saliva without realizing it due to the sudden explosion of Jin's energy. Because just looking at it made me feel like I was suffocating. In an instant the air became infinitely heavier and it felt as if my compatriots standing right next to me were moving away. First of all, we have to adjust to eye level. The Red Ming tribe should not dare to look down on the Ming king. If you are tall, it is right to at least kneel. Reikiman rushed forward and swung his dual swords, but the brain energy formed like a protective shield blocked his path. Even though the brain energy was shattered by the twin swords, it was immediately restored, and the twin swords continued to split the air without reaching the target. Meanwhile, the Red Ming warriors behind them were indeed kneeling one by one. It is unable to withstand the pressure of the blue brain energy emitted by Jin. At least the fighting kings like Enolan protected the common warriors and cleared away their brain power, but it only lasted for a moment. Afterwards, the Maingwang Rain Sword began. The 10th sword of the king's sword fighter. Maingwang Rain Sword, opening. The 5 gods of Tusan symbolizing the pinnacle of King Myong. The only ones who can straighten their backs in that blue and gigantic storm are the King of Heaven or those of the same rank as them. Only such people could enjoy the privilege of being able to fight without being discouraged even under the Maingwang Rain Sword. Jiakmyong's civilian warriors do not meet that requirement. 27 warriors were already on their knees, fresh blood pouring from every pore of their faces. Now, unlike before, the Maingwang Rain Sword that Jin is unfolding is not in an unfinished state. It's just not enough compared to the class, but if it were a time without her, it's an area of maturity that would be worthy of being promoted to the status of Tusan right away. So it is natural for Jiakmyong warriors to die or faint immediately. Even those called Tuwang within the Jiakmyong tribe could not handle that energy. Whoops! Enolan and the 2 and 3 level fighting kings also sat down on the floor and spit out a handful of blood. The blood shed by the Red Ming clan did not remain for a moment in the air or on the floor but was scattered and evaporated in the brain. May you know that it is an honor to face this sword of the reigning king. Whenever you encounter me in the future, always act like you do now. This means you must kneel or bow down. A voice, as if the voices of hundreds of great kings had overlapped, pounded the battlefield. Even amidst the thunderstorms that continued everywhere, the enemy soldiers could clearly hear the low voices. It was horrifying and vivid, as if it was tearing my ears and entering my head. Among the enemies, only Reikiman Hogman was still standing unharmed, gradually narrowing the distance between him and Jin. If he didn't have the special ability of being a beast slaughterer, he would never have been able to overwhelm Barakt and Bardray like that, but he still doesn't lack the status of a great fighting king. It's obvious that I haven't regained all my strength, but to this extent. Wow! Every time Reikiman roared, a red spot appeared within the domain of the Emperor's Rain Sword. They are securing their own space without being weighed down by the blue brain. He has not yet fully recovered. Reikiman's bright red brain was only half of its prime. However, even when Riki thought about that fact, he did not say anything arrogant. This was because Jin was clearly aware that he was an opponent he could never defeat one-on-one even when he was in his prime. It's a wonder that my Simit compatriots survived Jin Runkendal. At that time you were curious and had a lot to ask. But not today, so if you have something to show, get it out quickly. You can summon additional reinforcements using the King of Fighting's abilities, or undergo a transformation called castle painting. The big snake told you about us. Or are you going to use your compatriots as a catalyst to escape using the return technique like Simit did? Big! Only Riki kicked Sigmund away and rolled on the floor. Jin, who had been in sight the whole time, suddenly disappeared and attacked him. I regained my balance and raised my dual swords. Jin was still nowhere to be seen, and Reikiman raised his senses as he felt his hair burning. It was impossible to predict where Jin's sword would come out. The brain energy of the Emperor's reigning sword continued to hide its true nature like fog. If he had regained his full strength, he would have been able to fight by spreading the castle fire and somehow canceling out the brain power of the Emperor's reigning sword. Of course, even that only had the effect of prolonging the battle time. Anyway, no matter what Riki does on his own, he can't defeat Jin. Moreover, Reikiman instinctively recognized that the Emperor's Rain Sword was a 5-stage sword made up of several stages. This was just the beginning, and if he went to the next stage, he wouldn't be able to endure it like he is now. It's called the King's Reigning Sword. It almost reminds me of the fighting spirit of the Qingming people back then. There must be a next step, but is the reason you save it because of the physical burden? As Reikiman expected, the results of the Battle of the Emperor's Rain Sword still put a lot of pressure on Jin. There is no reason to use it against an enemy that can be easily overwhelmed with just dogs. Jin was also conserving his strength in case Reikiman tried to do something. There are still no signs of using a return technique like during Simart. To prevent that from happening, other enemy tribes were intentionally tied up with the Myong King's Rain Sword. So the secret trick that only Riki can bring out is castle painting or summoning. If it's a castle painting, you can measure the combat power and then deal with it. If it's a summoning, you can open more Myongwang Rain Swords and wipe them all out no matter how many there are. In order to show his status as a member of the underworld, he could use Runkendal's magic sword, which is not being used on purpose. However, considering the number of Kinsalo members that the Jiakmyeong clan had hunted so far, it was not possible to summon that many. It didn't seem like any other great fighting king other than Reikiman had awakened. Therefore, it was a fight that Jin could never lose. Because the enemy tribe's recovery stage is not yet at a level where they can compete with Jin through pure force. They kept putting pressure on Reikiman. Jin confirmed that the bracelets on his arms were shining red. So I looked at the fallen enemy clans, but their mad hearts were not burning like when Simit used the return technique. Is this a summoning using a subspace warehouse? Naturally, Jin thought that the enemy clans would be summoned. But the next moment, the energy pouring out of Reikiman's bracelet was creating a huge hole in the sky, as if opening a passage through which something much larger than a person can enter and exit. Jin's eyes couldn't help but widen when he saw the things coming out of it. Fleet? At first glance, the enemy's fleet of over 50 ships was stationed at the huge portal opened by Reikiman. The strength of the enemy comes from power and knowledge. From what I heard, most of the flying ships on the ground today are almost scrap pieces by enemy standards. Jin stopped swinging his sword at Reikiman and aimed it at the fleet. Reikiman gave orders to his bracelet with an expressionless face. The target for the precision strike of the entire fleet is Jin Runkendal. Enemy name. Immediately the fleet's bombardment began. Hundreds of red rays that tangled and curved like snakes, and not a single one was missed, was pointed exactly at Jin. And Jin smiled and swung his sword as if he had no intention of avoiding the bombardment. Before we knew it, Runkendal's third decisive battle, the meteor shower, had been strengthened with lightning and was intercepting the fleet's bombardment. I will admit that I thought Riki would at most summon more of his own people. This is a bit surprising. For Riki alone, the sight of Jin taking even the fleet's bombardment without a care in the world was even more shocking. I can't believe they suppressed the Red Fleet's bombardment so easily. Reikiman could not help but tremble as he watched the blue meteor shower raining down against the fleet's bombardment. He thought that if the fleet was summoned, he could immediately achieve victory. It wasn't like that at all. As the bombardment began, Jin was radiating more energy by running wild, without even a hint of embarrassment or discouragement. Those who had fallen and the crew of the fleet were also doubting their eyes. It looks like our compatriot Reikiman has been defeated, and even our fleet can't hit him? The Tuong compatriots who went on a mission to the ground informed us in advance, but aren't they very different from the humans we remember? While all the enemy tribes on the battlefield were in shock, there was only one person. Only the fleet commander Simit was calmly observing the situation as if he had expected this outcome. Jin's meteor shower was already encroaching on the battlefield, pushing back the bombardment. Moreover, even during the explosion so terrible that it distorted space, Jin was constantly moving his body. He deflected the artillery bombardment falling on his head with his sword, dodged debris flying from blind spots, and was moving forward in search of Reikiman even though there was no visibility. Reikiman could not move quickly because he was busy taking care of his fallen compatriots. What the compatriots should have done when Jin Runkendal suddenly appeared was to use the return technique while the Reikiman compatriots were buying time. If I had been in the operational area from the beginning, I would have sent a direct message to my Reikuman compatriots that they should not summon the fleet. Summoning the fleet is currently the enemy's best and last resort. This was because the resurrection of the Jiakmyong people was still only in its very beginning stages. The number of awakened enemy tribes totaled only a few hundred, and those who had fully regained their strength were only about 30% of them. Therefore, there is a severe shortage of crew members to operate the Red Fleet under Reikuman, and not only the fleet but also Reikuman is unable to demonstrate its original power. Compatriots, come to your senses. Only Riki must save his compatriots. Modify the purpose of the bombardment. Instead of killing Jean Runkendal, we will change our focus to rescuing our compatriots Reikuman. Simmet's voice spread throughout the entire ship. But fellow Simmet, there has not yet been any modification of compatriot Reikuman's order. Changing the order according to the wishes of the Simmet compatriots. Monthly rites? Look down there. Is it possible for compatriot Reikuman to give orders now? If Reikuman's compatriot dies like this, the other Deatu King compatriots will not be able to wake up. The Jiakmyong tribe's interclass command system is absolute. Now Simmet was breaking that absolute rule. The fighting kings and warriors below looked confused for a moment. I will take full responsibility. Flagship Laviette enters descent mode. I will go down in person and collect my compatriot Reikuman. All Tuangs on board each fleet gather at Raviat. The rest of the fleet will cover the Reikuman compatriot and the flagship, but when the signal is given, gather all power to Raviat. In the end, the Jiakmyong tribe decided to follow Simmet's words. The flagship Raviat of the enemy's 4th fleet on which he was aboard came out of the portal forming a red protective shield. The Tuangs moved into space in their ships to Raviat. Only the ship that appears to be the flagship comes out of the portal. In addition, the artillery fire has changed to be aimed at hindering progress rather than hitting me directly. Are you trying to rescue Reikuman? The ships except Raviat were continuing their bombardment from inside the portal. I can't leave it like that. A blue brilliance appeared in Jin's eyes. It didn't open the next chapter of Fighting God's Wii, but it made the dog explode even more. Fidget. Zuzuzu, that is. Raviat's shield, which had been lowered in altitude, was in contact with the area of the Emperor's rain sword. Thanks to the addition and amplification of the brain energy of all the remaining fighting kings, Raviat was able to gradually invade the inside of the Myo King rain sword. It certainly seems to have much better performance than In's ships. Seeing as the lights aren't all on, it must have been unable to use all of its power, but it's coming through this brain machine. After meeting the Jiakmyong tribe, Jean continued to be amazed by their technological prowess. I was also jealous. If we could properly analyze their technological capabilities, realizing the blueprint for the Golden Fleet given by Boras would not be such a distant task. Let's see if this can hold up. Destruction of the meteor by the King of Swords. This time Huron's secret energy started from the ground and fired blue sword energy towards the ship. Likewise, the meteor destruction technique, strengthened by the thunder energy of the Emperor's rain sword, had a power comparable to the original used by Ron Hylan in the past. Immediately a crack appeared in the huge protective shield surrounding the portal. The Red Fleet spread out narrowly, avoiding the meteor crashing through its shields. One by one ships were seen losing their balance as if they were caught on a reef. Simmet was heartbroken as he saw the scene. Did Jean Runkendal decide to attack the fleet rather than the flagship? Fortunately, with that level of power, the flagship will be able to hold out until Reikuman's compatriots are secured. From the Myanwang rain sword to the meteor shower and meteor destruction, Jean was already unfolding 3 transcendental swords in a row. Simmet thought that it would be impossible for Jean to raise his power any higher than this. It was only 3 seconds later that I realized that that thought was an illusion. Why are you suddenly sticking your sword into the ground? No way. Ha! I still have this kind of power left. Runkendal's first decisive battle. A huge sword energy that divided the earth and the sky poured out from the sword stuck in the ground. The target of that sword was the flagship Raviat. Maximum deployment of the shield. Detonate the power concentration signal. As Simmet's urgent voice spread, Raviat and the entire fleet began to glow red and resonate. Although Jean did not know the technology of the enemy clan, he instantly recognized the brain power of the Ravietro fleet being concentrated. I don't know what it is, but I need to know one technical skill. The sword energy of the ashes was striking Raviet's lower part. Although the shield was not torn, the altitude increased due to the impact and the distance between Raviet and Lakeman increased. Jean was instantly impressed by Raviet's sturdy protective shield. Among the ships that exist in the world, there is no object that can withstand the Myingwang rain sword and the fall of heaven without the help of a superhuman. However, as Raviet's shield became stronger, the intensity of the bombardment decreased significantly. Because of this, Jean was able to move toward Raki Bay more easily than before. Jean and Raviet. The key was which of the two would reach Lakeman first. Jean did not just avoid the lightened artillery fire and rushed forward, and Raviet also increased his descent speed. Naturally, the closer he gets to the center of the King's Rain sword, the more brain energy Raviet must endure. Every time I got closer to Rakiman, cracks were spreading like crazy in Raviet's shield. Rakiman, are you going to summon your fleet? Be confident and then stay in hiding? Indeed, it has been a long time. Rakiman admitted that he was completely overwhelmed. Like when he faced the battle gods of the Red and Blue Ming tribes in the past, or like when he faced the first great fighting king who always overwhelmed him. There seemed to be an insurmountable wall blocking everything. Because of his unique cold temperament, I wasn't overcome with fear, but I almost felt like I never wanted to encounter Jean again. Until all of our compatriots wake up, we must avoid fighting Jean Runkendal as much as possible. Today, if I can survive and return. Survival was the priority if he was going to fight again someday, so Rakiman ignored Jin's provocation and wandered around looking for a safer area. I struggled to somehow reach Raviet. Rakiman, compatriot, hang in there a little bit. We can rescue you. It's so loud. Raviet's defense was slowly reaching its limit. Parts of the hull broke apart, fragments fell, and the interior was filled with heat, so casualties who could not survive came out one after another. Simmet opened his bloodshot eyes and continued to transmit brain energy as a power source. My whole body was shaking and it felt like all my organs were melting. Ka-ia! Open the boarding gate! Samart's efforts finally paid off. Came within a range where only Raki could ride. The boarding gate was only opened for a short time. In the meantime, the thunder blade of the Emperor's reigning sword entered the ship along with Rakiman and other fighting kings and was annihilating the crew. The enemy tribes below level 3 Tuong, who were already exhausted from supplying power to the ship, died without being able to hold out even for a moment. Rakiman, who boarded the ship, was out of breath and repeatedly vomited blood. And Olin and Tuangdul lost consciousness and suffered intermittent convulsions. Rakiman's arms contained the hearts of his compatriots who had just died on Earth. There was no time to even open the subspace warehouse again, so I had no choice but to take care of it like this. Return. Raise altitude. Raviet began climbing toward the portal. The ship, which had been fine just a few seconds ago, was half destroyed and was barely speeding along. Only Raki, who had just boarded the ship, was able to restore the shield by squeezing out the optical heart and supplying additional power. For some reason, the sword that had been pounding on the hull without stopping for a moment had subsided, but I did not feel relieved at all. Rather, my anxiety grew rapidly. There's no way Jean stopped attacking because he was tired. Compatriot Lakeman, you must arrange for the portal to close as soon as we enter. As expected by the enemy clans, Jean had prepared his final magic sword to strike those who were running away. Enhancement of Runkendal's magic sword. Sarah's magic sword mixed with the brain energy of the Emperor's rain sword instantly engulfed the battlefield. Before we knew it, Tess, who had been summoned, was gathering the flames of fire into one place, towards the flagship of the enemy tribe Raviet. In the blink of an eye, the blue flames chased after Raviet, who had climbed up near the portal. Only then did Jean stop his sword and look up at the sky. Under the narrowing portal, I could see Iowa and Raviet chasing after each other. Damn! Jean Runkendal's flames entered the portal together. The dimension door closed. In the nick of time, Yofwa disappeared into the portal along with Raviet, and Jean had one question. You missed it. However, the incandescent fire entered the portal at the same time as their flagship, so what happens? Jean was unable to witness the results himself, but the Red Myungs had to make many sacrifices to block the flames of the fire for a while even after they fled beyond the portal. What if I couldn't escape through the portal? The resurrection of the Jiakmyong clan would have ended today. The portal opened by Reikuman Hog with his bracelet was the ship launch site of Patlok, the enemy citadel. The flames of fire fell together with the enemy tribesmen who fled to the sortie where nearly 1,000 ships were waiting. Upon their return, the Jiakmyong tribe had no choice but to experience chaos. The fire that escaped Jin's control did not die down immediately but spread randomly, engulfing every corner of the sortie field. Turn out the lights, disperse, board the ship, and activate the emergency shield. Simit took command in place of the unconscious Reikuman. He was in such dire straits that he looked like he was about to faint at any moment, but if he fell now, Patlok's Red Fleet would be finished. Destroy the ship that is already on fire to prevent it from spreading to other ships. And the two compatriots in front quickly take compatriot Reikuman to the treatment room. If the Tuong-level enemy clans had not been exhausted, the task of extinguishing the flames would not have been so daunting. There was nothing I could do now. The enemy clans shed bloody tears internally as they destroyed ships engulfed in fire. The good news among the misfortunes was that the calamity did not have the characteristics of eternal flame. The Jiakmyong people were able to evolve successfully only after losing about 100 ships. After all the remaining flames of the fire were extinguished, Simit and the Jiakmyongs sat down on the floor for a while with blank eyes. Too much was lost in one fight. Why did Jean Runkendal appear there? It is said that after the battle of the demon gods, the temporary alliance on the ground was dissolved and they returned to hostility. It was a series of events that Simit could not understand. Jean Runkendal suddenly appeared at the Kinsalo branch and Reikuman dared to fight against him. Simit spoke directly to Reikuman several times. Even if you encounter Jean Runkendal or another transcendent powerhouse while hunting, you must retreat for now. They say that while they are not as strong as they were in the past, the earth is full of all kinds of strong people. It's not like there was no time to run away. If he could summon a fleet, he would have been able to use the recall technique by sacrificing his prey or low-ranking compatriots in the Kinsalo branch. You incompetent bug. I can't believe you lost your fleet because you couldn't even do one thing like this. Simit suddenly spoke out loud and Anolan and Ozan, who were nearby, looked at him in surprise. Compatriot Simit? Simit was also surprised by what he said. Without realizing it, I thought of Riki as a subordinate and then a slip of the tongue came out. That's what I said to myself. Anolan and Ozan felt uneasy but did not ask any more questions. First we need to find out what happened to Jean Runkendal and Kinjalo. Was there just some kind of deal, or did they become allies again? I will check right away during the next mission. We must quickly wake up the other Deitu King compatriots. As soon as compatriot Reikuman's treatment is finished, I'll have to check out the other fortresses. To counter the power of Jean Runkendal, at least the great fighting King Bakarun's compatriots and his fortress or combat god compatriots must awaken. The Bakarun compatriot's fortress is probably as sealed as ours. But the compatriot who committed suicide, didn't he suddenly disappear even when we were active? These days I'm thinking that the reason my compatriot who committed suicide went into hiding was because he predicted this type of sealing situation. It was a random story, but Anolan and Ozan did not specifically deny it. Simit has always shown himself to be capable, and many times what he said was laughed at but eventually turned out to be true. However, it was not possible to truly accept the fact that the Tushan of the Jiakmyong tribe abandoned his compatriots and disappeared alone out of fear of being sealed. Among the other Deitu King compatriots there may be someone who knows the whereabouts of the Tushan brothers. Even if there is none, we will not be able to revive unless our compatriots, the great fighting kings, wake up. So we need more innovative methods than just hunting. The dangers of hunting have been proven beyond measure through this incident. There is no law that prevents problems like today from happening again. Deal. I think we should think about making a deal or forming an alliance with the surface. Do you have any earthly powers in mind? Jaifel or the remnants of the human royal family? Next time I hunt, I will go out and try to contact them myself. Meanwhile, each leader on the ground was receiving reports on this incident. The Jiakmyong tribe. Baradin looked at the report and nodded with interest. It is presumed to be a subspecies of the Ming dynasty. It has the combat power and incredible technological prowess that even ordinary soldiers are not instantly killed by the Mia dynasty sword. They are quite attractive people, the Jiakmiang clan. I'm sorry for not being able to find out more, Matriarch. From what I heard from the Revenants and my wizards, it was only when the battle between Jean Runkendal and the Red Mystery became most intense that we were able to approach and confirm it. It's okay. Since he worked near Jean and came back alive and even obtained general information, he should be rewarded. Which is the judgment of the Revenant or the Archon's ghosts? They say it was my subordinate's decision. Satron answered. Then the Ghost Troop should receive the award. I will give everyone in the Ghost Troop an opportunity to learn the family's level 2 vision. Thank you, Matriarch. However, I have one more thing to report to you before you receive the award. What is it? It's not certain, but there is talk that something other than us wizards may have been on the battlefield. Something else. Yes, they said it was extremely difficult to read the presence, so I think it was probably Jonah Runkendal or some unknown assassins. But they said it was impossible to confirm. It's probably one of the two anyway. Either the Bamul Alliance or someone sent by the Imperial Remnants. Are there people of that caliber among the remnants of the Imperial family? I don't know much about them. That is why we must always keep the Imperial remnants in mind. Right now I'm crouching because I don't have any strength, but I have to assume that I can rise up at any time. Yes, I understand. If they are the remnants of the Imperial family, they will definitely try to contact the enemy tribe, so we need to be careful. Make sure to also send people to the Imperial territories surrendered by the Imperial remnants. I'll have to try my hand at the remaining high-ranking Imperial officials. Yes, Matriarch. And I will give the Revenants a chance to learn level 3 vision. Thank you. Just like he did with Cadian Baradin was intentionally killing Octavia. All of Kiliak's leading figures were receiving similar treatment. However, Octavia and others did not dare to express their dissatisfaction. The only way to survive in the family was to lie flat and show loyalty. I need to contact them and talk to them. Wraith Captain and Archon, please continue to send wizards to determine their haunting locations. All right. Please convey orders to your staff to write a follow-up article immediately. It would be correct to say that the Jiakmiang tribe has been revived due to Jean and Kinselo and is threatening royalties. Yes, we will make sure the news spreads throughout the Federation within today. Great. I will go to the shrine and see if there is anything the shaman can help with. If we can obtain the technology of the enemy clan, we will be able to accelerate the time to attack the enemy. That's how Jeep's meeting ended. And at the same time, the Beamant Imperial family was also holding a similar meeting. The remnants of the Vyman Imperial family, an uninhabited island located in the North Sea of the Lutheran Federation, had been hiding there and inactive after the Battle of the Gods. Reikiman Hogg. It's been a long time since I heard that name. He's still so arrogant that he's doing things wrong. Simmet must be feeling frustrated. He was talking as if he knew Reikiman Hogg. The royal family sitting next to him nodded as if they only knew Riki. Aaron Beamant, the person who led the remaining royal family and followers after the execution of former Emperor Amir Beamant. He attempted to assassinate Dante by receiving Yona's spirit from Joshua before the Battle of the Beasts, and even during the Battle of the Gods of Evil, he attempted to send demons, including rats, to kill key figures in the Bamul Alliance. Despite this, little is known to the world about Aaron. Before Amir ascended to the throne, he was only ranked 30th in the line of succession, so he was never in the spotlight, and he never revealed himself in the first place due to the mysticism of the Vymant Imperial family. However, the most oldest members of the Vymant Imperial family. In other words, the royal family who have watched the Beamant Imperial family, which has existed for thousands of years from the beginning, have regarded Aaron Beamant as the true emperor ever since. Aaron is the only emperor of the Vymant Empire, and the hundreds of emperors known to the outside world were all mere smokescreens to hide the secret. The royal family members who sat next to Aaron were always hiding in the imperial palace, changing their names and appearances over a long period of time. They were the origins of imperial mysticism. Thank you for your hard work. The harvest is very big. The royal family called Baival nodded. He was the one who secretly watched Jin's battle along with the magicians of Jeep. Thank you, Your Majesty. The opportunity has finally come to reclaim and revive our empire. The underground forces, including the Jiakmyong people, will still be crazy about the resurrection of the sun god, so we must use that fact to create a plan where our enemies and they can be destroyed together. The royal family's eyes became sharp at Aaron's words. It occurred to me that my days of hiding in the name of mysticism were numbered. To do that, we first need to help the enemy tribe regain their strength. Baival, go to their fortress right now and propose a deal, with the intention of providing a large amount of nutrients. I'm sure you remember the location of Patlock Fortress, right? Yes, Your Majesty. Good. I'm sure they'll take the deal. However, due to the nature of the enemy tribe, when they are full they will lose their senses and prepare to stab you in the back, so we need to bring out sweeter bait to prevent that from happening. What more information can I convey to the enemy tribe? At those words, Aaron grinned and continued talking like this. If you don't betray us until the end, tell them that you will tell us the whereabouts of the Red Mystery Tushan when the time comes. Beneath the uninhabited island where the Beemont royal family was hiding, there was a passage leading to the underworld. Strictly speaking, it was not a passage leading to the demon world, which meant a complete underground, but a passage leading to the middle layer, where beings like Amaris lived after the world was divided in half. The passage was neither created by the imperial family, nor by the Lutheran Federation, the island's current owner. It was a road built by the Qingming tribe in ancient times when the Solar War was in full swing. The passageways created by each hegemonic power at that time still remain throughout the world. Among the powers on Earth, only the imperial family knows this fact. Amaris had forgotten the existence of the passages due to a memory error caused by the seal. After I sensed the big snake waking up, fortunately the situation we feared did not occur. If the big snake's memories and powers had remained intact, none of the races sealed in the middle layer would have survived. As Baival left, Aaron said with a smile. Aaron was certain of Amaris' condition based on the fact that the Jiakmyong clan was running wild with royalties. The power, authority, and memories are all incomplete. The same was true for the Jiakmyong tribe. It is true that Jin's military power is closest to the peak of royalties, but if Reikiman and the Red Fleet were in their prime, the fight would not have been so one-sided. It was a combination that could at least provide some level of resistance. That's right, Your Majesty. It was our great fortune that we were put on the defensive as soon as the enemy tribe woke up. Even those arrogant and vicious bastards won't be able to shake off the hand we extend to them. As long as the technology is passed down well through a deal with the Jiakmyong clan, cloning him will no longer be a dream. Moreover, if we find the buried Qingming people from now on, we will be able to awaken Elliot as well. The empire will rise again. It will be an eternal empire that will stand tall, and no one can destroy it. The royal family did not hide their excited voices. Since ancient times they have endured what feels like an eternity of humiliation in order to have a chance at survival. During that long period of time, they have never once reigned as an overwhelming force. In ancient times they were treated as insects by powerful people such as the Red Ming tribe and the Qingming tribe, and even while civilizations were born and fell several times on Earth after the Great Seal, they always barely withstood the crisis of extinction. Then they finally founded Beemont, but as modern human history proves, Beemont has never achieved an absolute status worthy of the name of an empire. This is because monsters called Runkendal and Ziffel existed. As soon as Jeep appeared, it threatened the existence of the empire, and when it could no longer endure, Runkendal appeared. From then on, for another 1,000 years, the empire had been walking a tightrope while keeping an eye on both families, and now only the old members of the imperial family could barely hide themselves. Therefore, the royal family of Beemont has only one wish: complete and safe survival. The power to rule the world alone was the most important means of realizing it. The royal family had no interest in things like the resurrection of the sun god. Rather, it was a position that must be stopped. If the sun god is resurrected, they will have to live like insects again according to their fate. As soon as Baival returns, we will start looking for the buried Qingming people. To check each local passageway. Enemies, especially Runkendal, can use the abilities of Amaris and the Record Mage, so they will soon learn of the existence of the Blue Light Burrowers. We must secure it before them. I understand, Your Majesty. If our deal with the enemy is concluded, the situation on the ground will change very quickly. The enemy will run amok. We will be the ones who will not lose our balance until the end amidst the hasty changes. As always, we will be the only ones left standing until the end. As the royal family dispersed, Aaron remained alone in the conference room and watched out the window. A cool wind was blowing. October 8, 1803. Exactly a week has passed since Jean drove out the enemy clans that attacked Kinsalow Branch 3. Since that day, the Jiakmyong clan has never appeared in Ince. At least that's what the Barmal coalition and Zippel Kinjalo knew. In fact, the Jiakmyong tribe did not hunt on the ground, but Reikiman and Simit had already met Aaron in person and completed the transaction. And the Red Ming clan and the Huang family have already benefited each other a lot. The Jiakmyong tribe took the blood of the humans and old barriers sent by Aaron and opened the second fortress in an instant, and the Huang family was cultivating weapons by receiving their technology. Everything happened while avoiding the surveillance networks of major powers. It is the privilege of those who dominate the use of the middle class. As soon as Baradin became the head of the family, he has been on a pretty rough path. Jean said while looking through the newsletters. Scoops were pouring in every day. Baradin's ascension to the head of the family. In the background, Kiliak's rebellion in the underworld Amaris and the appearance of the Jiakmyong tribe. Jean awakened them. The whole story was being revealed to the public. Zippel's reporters are consistently making the argument that Confucius is threatening the world by awakening beings from the underworld. Jean nodded at Casimir's words. It feels like they are trying to create a cause for war. I threatened the world first, so Zippel attacking the Runkendal and Bamul alliance was in self-defense. The reason they do something like this, even after seeing the power of Confucius and Tusin and the power of our union in the battle of the demon gods, is because they have faith in them. It's probably a power related to the demon god stone or Ziffel's sacred site. Of course, Jean wanted to delay the war as much as possible. The Golden Fleet is completed, the brothers are taken out of La Perosa, and Murakan returns. Also, if possible, he also wanted to start the war after ascending to Changxiang. A war fought with all those conditions in place would not be a war filled with blood, madness, and wounds, but would be literally overwhelming. If we could completely overwhelm our enemies, we could clean up the world without unnecessary death and destruction. In other words, we can fight while protecting the lives of ordinary people as much as possible. It was impossible at the moment, and beyond that we had to fight an extremely disadvantageous fight. Both above and below ground, the only force that cared about civilians was the Bamul alliance. Baradin knows exactly what concerns me most: the death of colleagues and innocent people. If the war starts quickly, I will lose a lot, even if we achieve victory. These are nightmares that I have already experienced firsthand at the Temple of Evil. Rather, there would be even more sacrifices in a war between great powers. The whole world would become a battlefield, and after the battle was over, what the winner would face was bound to be a desolate landscape that would never be seen before in the world. That was making Jin's heart feel tight. A feeling of debt that one must have because one is a regressor. Jean recalled the message that Ron, who had ascended to Changxiang in the past, left to him through Dante just before his death. You told me there was nothing wrong with you. These are words for both you and me. Okay. All of these things may not be my fault, but that doesn't mean I can ignore them. No matter what happens in the future, I have no choice but to move forward while doing my job. I have to be the best in this world. Trying to be the best in the world. That was the only thing that was able to overcome Jin's difficulties as a returner. Jean adjusted his expression and made eye contact with his colleagues, as if he had just shaken off a mental illness. Sooner or later a war will begin. Even if it's not an all-out war, there will definitely be localized battles. Even if it is not Baradin, there is a very high possibility that the enemy tribe will begin more radical activities in Ince after recovering from the damage. After defeating them, Valeria investigated Kinsalow Branch 3 and found that not only Zippel but also the remnants of the royal family had sent people there. There was intelligence that Jeep has been looking for the whereabouts of the remnants of the royal family. Quicanthal said, pointing to the report. Not only Jeep, but we have been tracking them since the fake Jonah incident. We'll do everything we can, including Valeria's recording magic. However, since they have never been caught so far, we cannot rule out the assumption that they may be hiding somewhere other than the ground. That's my opinion too, Mr. Quickhantle. Those mystic bastards must have hidden abilities. If it has to do with the underground, now might be their opportunity. As far as I know, there are no such secrets in the imperial family. Considering that Aaron Vimant suddenly took over power after Amir's death, the former emperor may have been a scarecrow to begin with. In addition to Jeep and the royal family, Kinzalo was also a problem. Zephyrin, it is almost certain that the demon dragon is one of the heads of this body. Perhaps when Zephyrin awakens in the future, she will regain some of her memories and powers from those days. Although it may not be complete as the disappeared self is returning. In any case, it's definitely not the head trying to prevent the resurrection of the sun god. I really hope to regain some of the strength and power I had back then. Or we hope that Zephyrin's unconsciousness has nothing to do with Ameri's. If it's the latter, it would be perfect, but I think it's better not to have high expectations. The moment Zephyrin spoke up to that point, the communication device installed in the conference room glowed blue and rang a resonant sound. Sagaju, this is an urgent report. As soon as I received the communication, I heard Leet's voice. Please speak, Chief Deacon. The enemy tribe attacked Jeep. What? Jiffle, not Kinzalo? It is said that Zippel's second-class magic tower located in Ramatan was bombed by an enemy fleet 6 hours ago. Jeep is currently in a state of war. The Runkendal and Bamul alliance thought that when the enemy tribe resumed their activities on the ground, they would naturally target Kinzalo. However, they boldly touched the zip line, a development that no one except the imperial family expected at all. The fact that they resumed their activities so quickly seems like they got help from someone. Jean narrowed his eyes as he answered. Unless it was Jeep's own play, the remnants of the royal family were the most likely suspects. Before the Battle of Evil Spirits began, Zippel closed all the magic towers except for one magic tower. And he supplied fleets and troops to each region of the Federation and built new magic towers for each level. The level 2 magic tower that the enemy tribe invaded this time was a middle level among them. About 50 ships and about 1,000 wizards were deployed. The flagship is the Arcadia class of the 5th fleet of the main Zippel family, and the tower owner is an 8-star wizard from non-Zippel. However, there were 2 ghost squads and 2 ghost squads with combat power that surpassed that of the tower owner. Even if it is not the most elite, it is enough to be called elite. And it only took 30 minutes for the enemy tribe to destroy the level 2 magic tower. Although it was a completely unexpected attack, Ramadan's magic tower was reduced to ashes without even being able to properly respond. Do you mean there was such a big difference in fleet strength? Baradin said. The land where the second-class magic tower once stood was a complete ruin. The black bone fragments left throughout the ruins showed that the enemy's bombardment had been extremely harsh. The only survivors of the attack were 2 members of Satron's ghosts. Yes, matriarch. Suddenly a huge portal opened in the sky and more than 100 enemy ships appeared, far exceeding the capabilities of our fleet. Although most of our fleets were not able to sortie properly, even if they had fought in preparedness, the outcome would not have been different, only the battle time would have been different. The surviving ghost group bowed their heads as they explained the situation to Baradin. Did Jean seem to be superior to the fleet he faced? Yes. I couldn't confirm this because almost no enemy tribes disembarked, but it seemed like the commander was someone other than Reikiman Hogg. What is the basis for that judgment? The emblem of the fleet was different. Is that all? You mean you didn't declare war or tell us the purpose of attacking us? Not a word was said. As soon as the portal opened, they started bombarding. At the first bombardment, the upper part of the magic tower collapsed and the tower owner was killed. I took over command and immediately started responding, but I couldn't do anything. The Jiakmyong people literally disappeared in an instant after carrying out a one-sided massacre in silence. Just like people like Dyphus and Joshua, who were engulfed in chaos right before the Battle of the Beasts. It was an attack that could only be carried out if large-scale teleportation was possible. However, unlike back then, the Jiakmyong tribe did not cause any harm to civilians. Only the magic tower was completely destroyed and it fell out. Originally I wanted to meet once and talk, but since they came out first like this, we have no choice but to fight. It feels like I've already joined hands with other guys. You've been caught by crazy guys. Why on earth did they attack us? I don't think they did this just to show off their power. After the magic tower was destroyed, ropes were lowered from the ship. We saw the capture of strong mages who survived the bombardment. We almost got caught too. I don't think it was intended to be used as a prisoner of war. If he had done that, he would have targeted the tower owner or other factors first, and he would have told them what he wanted before leaving. Baradin recalled what he had recently heard from Sana. Furthermore, I heard from the shaman that among the ancient races underground there are those whose nutrients come from the blood of other living beings. I think that's the enemy tribe. They said there were almost no bodies left in the destroyed Kinsalo Beast land branch. It's probably because they all captured them for blood. Phew! Baradin sighed and shook his head. No shame. The ghost group bowed their heads. It's not your fault. Rather, he is credited with surviving and making known the size and fighting power of the raiders. If there is anything you want, talk to the Archon. Baradin defeated the ghosts and made eye contact with the executives. I never thought the day would come when I would be attacked like this by people who were neither Runkendal nor Kinsalo. It hasn't been long since you became the head of the family, but something like this happened. It is something that would diminish one's prestige. It doesn't matter because Jean ruined the family's prestige long ago. The problem is not the prestige or the immediate damage, but the fact that we were completely unable to respond to their attack, Captain Wraith. Now that we have harvested without any damage, they will continue to raid all over the Federation like this. For the time being, all regions will need to maintain a permanent emergency state. Even so, I am concerned that the fleet gap is so extreme. For now, we just have to hold out until we recognize the strike and send reinforcements. When we were attacked while defenseless, we lasted 30 minutes, so if we are in perfect condition, we will last at least 2 hours. I don't think there will be any restrictions on the Red Mysteries spatial movement, Matriarch. I don't think it's possible to conduct raids like this every time with a fleet of over 100 ships. If we attack our area on a smaller scale, we will be able to buy more time. That's my opinion too, Brother Ronald. The small fast ships being tested should first be deployed throughout the region, so that no matter where you are hit, you can immediately notify the higher-ups. All mobile gateways on the ground are still closed due to the spirit left behind by Gleek. Excluding the very few capable of space leaps or ultra-long-distance communication, the fastest means of transportation in the current world was the Zippel. As of now, the war with the enemy clan has begun. Due to lack of information, we will have to fight at a disadvantage for the time being. The most urgent thing is to find out where they are based. Whenever a battle breaks out, I will give orders to capture at least one enemy alive, even if it requires some sacrifice. Please do so, brother. Also, even if you lose one magic tower, it will be more profitable to capture one enemy clan alive. And don't cover up today. It was broken so horribly that I couldn't even hide it. If the demon god stone was in a more perfect state than it is now, this shame could have been concealed by manipulating history, but it was impossible now. What can I do? Jean, please publish an article questioning the collusion between the Bamul Alliance and the Jiakmyong tribe. All right. It is obvious propaganda, but the important thing is to make the public aware of the fact that the new danger called the Jiakmyong tribe that has arrived on Earth started from Jean. Hurry up. It's a good idea for the knight to come out first before the enemy tribe attacks Runkendal or the Bammer Alliance. Yes, Matriarch. In fact, this time the Jiakmyong tribe intentionally excluded civilian casualties, so there are some aspects in common with the Bamul Alliance's methods. I will publish an article centered on that. But it's strange, ma'am. According to the report from the Ghost Group, it seems that the Jiakmyong tribe has already developed some kind of grudge with Jean, but I don't understand why they attacked us with all their might first. Even if it was impossible to attack the Garden of Swords or Tychon, if we attacked Hupister and the castles and fortresses of the Empire, we could have done quite a bit of damage. Ronald nodded at Octavia's words. Baradin's eyes narrowed. Oh! House owner. For some reason, I have a feeling that they are afraid of Jean. Not long ago in Kinsalo Branch 3, the entire enemy tribe and fleet at the level of a captain were nearly destroyed by one person. The reason they hit us first and the reason they excluded civilian casualties could be because they don't want to provoke Jean for the time being. Baradin turned and walked towards Kojak. So let's make it clear who the more fearsome opponent is from now on. Baradin will definitely spread an article saying that we have awakened the enemy clan. Not only did Runkendal create an evil spirit, but he is once again collaborating with underground forces and threatening royalties. This is certain judging by the way Baradin is waging a public opinion war recently. Jean accurately predicted Baradin's number. Losing prestige is your specialty, but Jeep has been waging public opinion wars with strange frequency these days. Haven't you decided not to worry about that anymore? I have a feeling that there may be another reason rather than just trying to create a justification for war. That's right, Mr. Quickhantle. It's a thought that just occurred to me, but it seems that the public opinion war to blame the threat of royalties may be the underpinnings of a future manipulation of history. The more people who believe that, the easier it will be to manipulate. Wow! I got goosebumps, Prince Jean. That could be possible. But we have Valeria, so we'll be okay. It's just a guess, Enya. In any case, the more important issue right now is the actions of Jeep and Jiakmyong. This time we touched on Jeep, but next time it could be us or the Empire. We have Mott and the Red Owl communication device, so we can respond much faster than Zippel, but we don't have enough fleet. We can't send a fully equipped fleet to all areas like Jeep. The underground drying facility in Jiamwangi has not yet been completed. Even the mass-produced Yellow has not been completed yet. Even Magic Knight troops are not at a level where they can be deployed throughout the entire region. So first of all, we need to somehow increase the production speed of communication devices and supply them to each major base and fortress, so that if there is an attack by an enemy tribe, I or other superhumans can be called and provide support at any time. In other words, what the Runkendal and Bamul alliance needed most was time. The speed at which the losers move is unusual. Regardless of whether they had made a deal with the remnants of the royal family or with whomever they had made a deal, they were clearly people who knew the Red Ming tribe well. Knowing exactly what the Jiakmyong tribe needs to regain their power, they are providing it. Information on the blood and royalties of outstanding people. Mr. Amaris, didn't you say last time that the Jiakmyong tribe has the technology to make the fallen fight again? That's right. The Jiakmyong tribe uses the light hearts of dead warriors to create biological weapons called the Immortal Army. Why are you suddenly asking that? An ominous thought was piercing Jin's mind. If it is true that the remnants of the imperial family made a deal, the best price they can get from the Red Mystery is the technology to turn Timar's body into a weapon. Jin shook his head without saying that thought out loud. It's nothing. It just occurred to me. First I will return to the family, review the troop deployment, and then come back. If there is anything that needs to be reported immediately, please let us know. I understand, Confucius. At that time Jean rode a red owl and headed to the Garden of Swords. The Jiakmyong tribe was also opening a portal for invasion in the Sky of Ince. It was above the sky, guarded by the Empire Dante. The Bird Dragon Fortress is a training ground for Highland Dragon Knights and a space to train their companion bird dragons. The Jiakmyong tribe chose this place as their next hunting ground following the Grade 2 Zippel Magic Tower. This is because the Quassel Plain, the land where the Dragon Fortress is located, is a place comprised only of Dragon Knights and prospective Dragon Knights for the purpose of training Dragon Knights and maintaining security. What the enemy clan needs is the blood of a strong creature. From the Red Ming tribe's point of view, they were easy to consume and were excellent nutrients. Even if the dragon was a ghost, it had a value that surpassed that of the white wolf or the red tiger, and the same was true for the Dragon Knights. Moreover, by the standards of the Red Ming tribe, the defense power of Bird Dragon Fortress was literally insignificant. As shown during the attack on the second-class Magic Tower, the enemy tribe quickly took control of the sky above the Bird Dragon Fortress by moving through dimensions and descending the fleet. The Red Fleet of the Red Ming tribe appeared this time and fired a barrage of artillery fire. The bombardment that suddenly started from above devastated the entire fortress in just a few seconds. Since it was an attack through space leap, the Dragon Knights naturally had no time to prepare and had no suitable way to respond. How dare you! Crack! Dante gritted his teeth as he swatted away the debris and fragments of artillery fire that fell on his head. Dante usually works in Hylon's second castle, but today, he visited the Dragon Fortress in person to check on the Dragon Knights. If Dante wasn't there now, the Jiakmiang tribe would have easily and quickly enjoyed massacre and plunder as planned and leisurely escaped from Quassel. Matriarch, are you okay? I'm fine. Take a look at the young knights and dragons. Yes. Rescue them and evacuate immediately. This is not an opponent you can face. And send one of the fastest dragon knights to the second city of Hylon to inform them of this. All right. The knights nearby scattered, pushing away the remains of the collapsed conference room. An indescribably deep and harsh anger welled up, but Dante maintained his senses and went outside. At first glance, over 100 red ships were surrounding the fortress. Those in the central hall with Dante were all top-level dragon knights. Therefore, the first bombardment did not cause much damage, but the dragon knights and dragons on the other side did not. Calmain, the leader of the Dragon Knights, was absent, and all of the elite Dragon Knights had been dispatched throughout the Empire. The corpses of dead Dragon Knights and dragons were seen nearby, and the screams of their subordinates could be heard in their ears. Dante unsheathed his sword, scanning the enemy's flagship with calm, sharp eyes. It's not just the enemy tribe Jean mentioned or the fleet is strong. There is a person with transcendental skills among the passengers. Dante intuitively recognized the fact. The commander of the enemy Red Fleet currently surrounding the fortress is Dreckhorn. He was the head of the Red Mystericon clan and the newly awakened king of great fighting. And unlike Reikiman, he had almost regained the strength of his prime. Isn't that person the person called Jiamwang in royal circles? The appearance matches and the energy is also amazing. Henge compatriot, why is the author here? I'm sorry, fellow Drek. Currently Dante Hiron is the head of the Empire, so I couldn't find out the exact schedule. Okay, I understand. So please understand that Henge compatriots will also become immortals by my will from now on. Dreg grabbed Henge's head before he could respond. Ayah! Then Henge's huge body instantly turned as bony as a tree branch. The blood that escaped from his body turned into red particles and was absorbed into Dreg's grasp. Sigh! At the sound of the light heart falling to the floor, the Jiakmiang people tensed up. Open the bridge. I have something to suggest to the Emperor. When the flagship's bridge was opened, Dante was able to see Drek's appearance. Dreg looked down at Dante and narrowed his eyes with interest. The Sword Emperor, I am Dreckhorn, the great fighting king of the Red Mystery Clan. Give me a chance. Abandon this puny fortress and flee immediately. Then I will not take your life today. We will return with the appropriate amount of blood, and you will plan the future. Dante wanted to go up immediately and kill Dreg, but he kept his mouth shut and took time, so that the scattered knights can take more care of the injured reserve knights and dragons. Drek saw through his intentions and sneered. Even if we clumsily wait a few seconds, all the humans here today become our food anyway. King's Sword Secret Technique. One sky in the sky. As soon as Dreg finished speaking, Rashid began to shine. A huge sword was launched as if sweeping the entire Red Fleet ahead. However, Drek blocked Dante's strike with only the fleet's shield without using his own strength. Dreg's own military power as well as the fleet's performance and firepower were not comparable to when Reikiman attacked Kinzelo's third branch. Is this the answer? This is indeed a sword worthy of being called the Emperor of Swords. I almost want to go down and mix up the weapons myself, but we're not here to duel. It's an invasion. It's a shame. The bridge closed and Drek disappeared. Dante roared and unleashed a series of attacks, but the fleet's shield only glowed more red as he did so. Even if the Red Fleet's shields are great, they cannot continue to receive Dante's secret techniques. However, the problem was that Dante did not have control over the battlefield. While the Red Fleet can attack the entire fortress unilaterally from the sky, Dante must fight while protecting the Dragon Knights and Bird Dragons. The shelling began again. A fierce red-hot bombardment was trampling the Joryong fortress. Because he was aware of Dante's presence, Dreg ordered an even more fierce bombardment than the first time. We can't save them all. Dante had to admit. With his current abilities, he could never protect everyone here. Perhaps it would have been wiser to accept Drek's offer and run away. Drek too wanted to take his prey and leave rather than lose his fighting power while fighting Dante. However, among the first misfortunes, it was fortunate that Dante came to the Bird Dragon Fortress today. The second was the fact that Dante did not come alone. Wow! Big! Suddenly an explosion occurred in the sky on the left side of the enemy tribe's siege network. Someone had attacked the rear of the fleet gathered there. In the meantime, the enemy tribe had concentrated their power on the front shield to block Dante's attack, so the rear was relatively vulnerable. No matter how superior the enemy tribe's ship was, it could not withstand the blow of the strongest warrior on Earth without a protective shield. The enemy tribe quickly deployed a rear shield, but they had already lost 2 ships. Before giving Henge's compatriot the honor of becoming an immortal, you should have asked about that human. Dreg looked at the left fleet and sighed. This time, is he a key executive of the Hito-Barmal coalition? Hito. Immediately after hearing the news that Zippel's second-class magic tower was attacked, Jean dispatched Hito to the Empire. It was judged that it would be impossible for Dante to protect the Empire alone until the attack patterns of enemy tribes were identified and appropriate countermeasures were developed. From now on, all ships except the flagship should focus their attacks on Jiamwang and Hito. We will catch the fleeing prey. For the flagship, open the power source to its maximum. I will personally amplify the brain energy. I'd better take care of one of them today and then head back. The artillery fire that had been falling throughout the fortress began to focus on the 2 men. Thanks to this, the reserve knights and dragons seemed to be able to evacuate more easily, but it only lasted for a moment. As soon as Dreg connected his optical heart to the power source, the firepower of the flagship, Baryon, increased. Baryon's wings spread out on both sides and a ferocious thunderclap erupted. Although they had an instinctive sense of danger, Dante and Hito had yet to properly experience the enemy fleet. Therefore, we did not stop the prospective dragon knights who started flying. I thought that if the 2 of us could block the bombardment together, the best way would be to fly away on a bird dragon. However, the red brain that formed on Baryon's wings quickly ate the sky of the Quassel Plain and caused the bird dragons to crash. The sky filled with Baryon's red brain is like a lava field. Like the red connecting barrier of the Imperial Special Lease, it had the property of annihilating all objects in the air. Of course, it was incomparably more powerful than the connecting barrier used by the Special Lease. Kaya Keek. The dragons were turning into ashes and falling to the ground. All of the reserve knights on board were reduced to ashes, and Dante suppressed the overwhelming sense of futility and swung his sword at the flagship. However, they were unable to close the distance due to the bombardment that poured in like a shower of fire. All ships except Baryon were pressing Dante and Hito. The dragon knights, who had no choice but to evacuate, had no choice but to run themselves. The dragons foamed at their mouths as they ran, and Baryon seemed to be unable to tolerate that and even opened fire. In other words, there was no way for the dragon knights to escape properly, either in heaven or on earth. Jiamwang. If this continues, the dragon knights will soon be wiped out. Hito shouted, standing next to Dante. Lord Hito. So you will protect the procession yourself and escape the battlefield. Go to Hylon 2 Castle as quickly as possible and call Jean through the communicator. Until then, I will be alone in keeping them tied up. It was best if we didn't want to give up all the dragon knights. However, Dante thought that he should be the one to take on the more dangerous role. Remaining in the Bird Dragon Fortress now would definitely mean risking one's life. This is an empire, it is Heron's territory, and he was the head of Hyran. I would rather stay. Sir Hito, go. No, you are strong, but you are weak. When are you talking about? It is right for Lord Hito to go. Anyway, are you stronger than me? If I get hurt, I just need to heal, but if you die, it will shake the entire empire. So there is no time for this. Go ahead and call Jean. If you say no, they will cut you in half. I'm serious. In the end, Dante had no choice but to nod due to Hito's stubborn attitude. All right. I will not forget this favor, Lord Hito. Hito saw that Dante was retreating and glared at his enemies. Whoa, it's tight. Then let's try our best to hold on. When Dante first noticed the attack by the enemy tribe in the conference room, Hito was watching the bird dragons in the castle waiting room. Therefore, Dante's attack was able to target the rear, while the Red Fleet was concentrating on the front shield. In some ways it was better for Hito that Dante took the Dragon Knights and dragons with him. This is because there is no need to fight while thinking about the lives of the Dragon Knights and bird dragons. From the time of the first bombardment until now, Hito swung his sword to save the dragon and Dragon Knight. However, now they had to focus their efforts only on the attack. So much so that the enemies could not pay any attention to Dante and the retreating Dragon Knights. Dante is one of the greatest martial artists in the world. He wouldn't have to worry about the shock flowing through Dante's ranks while he was fighting against the fleet. That means you can fight as much as you want. Sigh. Hito smiled, showing his teeth. The might of his long sword shone white and spread vast energy. The unique muscles expanded in an instant. The muscle fibers hidden beneath the hard, thick skin were endlessly dense and bristled like awls. The muscles that wriggled wildly whenever they moved were able to concentrate their power on one point at any time. If that power was in the sword, it seemed like it could cut through anything, and if it was in the grip, it felt like it could tear through anything. Hito quietly examined his body for a moment as if inspecting a huge mechanical device. His entire body was completely ready to follow him. It was ready to explode. Quang dash. Several artillery shells hit Hito directly. However, the red brain was unable to pierce his enormous body and bounced into the air. Hito caught the red brains that were about to scatter and violently tore them to pieces, and the red brains on the ship couldn't help but flinch at the sight. What is that? Is it a human? Deflecting a fleet bombardment with your bare body without a shield? Leaping into a crazy ship? Right now the sky is full of the magic unleashed by fellow Drex. Even if it was not the bombardment of the flagship Baryon, it was something that went far beyond the common sense of the enemy tribes. In order to withstand the thunderstorm unleashed by the flagship Baryon, it had to have at least as much defense power as the Red Fleet. This meant that Hito's body was harder than the ship. Moreover, that monstrous human was already shooting out black energy. The sword energy that exploded from the mastery of Kendo was covering the fleet like a tidal wave. The bombardment aimed at Dante and the Dragon Knights lost track due to the pressure of the Kendo, and the fleets closest to Hito briefly tilted and were pushed back. The sword momentarily obscured the fleet's view. When the fleet on the left front line regained sight, the first thing the enemy tribes saw was Hito leaping to the bow. Intercept. Activate the spikes while intercepting. Gun barrels came out from the left and right sides of the ship and fired sphere-shaped shells at Hito. However, there was nothing they could do about Hito's muscles, which could not even pierce the main gun. Hito did not even dodge the cannonball and plunged his sword into the bow. Zuzu, that is dash. At the same time, the ship's lightning shield, called Thorn, unfolded. It was a device for dropping enemies that were directly attached to the ship like now, and it had the power to take down even quite a few dragons in an instant. To Hito, even that was just a stinging trap. Hito destroyed the ship by exploding his energy into the blade he inserted into the bow. Enemy tribes jumped out from the ship, which was smashed like a walnut. There were Red Myungs who jumped to other ships to survive, and there were also those who rushed to stop Hito in any way possible. However, there was no change in the fact that everyone met the same fate. The approaching enemies were cut down with a single sword, and the retreating enemies were fired with swords. The 6 pieces of enemy tribes swept away by the Kendo splashed onto a nearby ship, creating a disgusting scene. "I'll destroy everything," Hito said, holding on to the bridge with his left hand. Although it had just been destroyed by an explosion, the bridge was easily 10 times larger than that. Hito was lifting it like a stone and throwing it at the next ship. The crew members on the next ship blinked. Did a human pick up the broken bridge with his hands and throw it away? The moment I had that thought, I saw Hito's face getting closer. Gasp! Pashang! Hito broke the glass with his fist and grabbed the Jiakmyong's neck and twisted it. Then, with the sword in his mouth, he held onto the hole in the glass with both hands and showed off his strength by splitting the ship. Wow! The moment Hito's roar ended, the ship split in half and crashed to the ground. The ship was literally torn apart like a piece of paper. 2 ships have already sunk. The enemy tribesmen who had initially attacked and destroyed a total of 4 ships from the rear were panicking. Flying ships are certainly the most powerful weapons of war, but they are not suitable for close combat. The reason fleets both ancient and modern were strong was because they were capable of one-sided strikes from extremely long distances and had excellent mobility. The problem was that the distance was too close from the beginning. Even Hito would not have been able to approach so easily if it had had to endure a precision strike from a ship from more than a dozen miles away. Of course, even in a situation where the battle begins at close range like now, there will be less than 10 warriors in the world who can do this. Even as Hito rose into the air and exploded the ships, he was continuously spraying swords to twist the flagship's gunfire toward Dante. It would have been a little better if Drek had targeted Dante with a fleet of about 100 ships excluding the flagship. He couldn't deflect the bombardment of that many fleets alone. Jiam Wang is thrown away. From now on, all fleets must widen their distance and prepare for a precision strike on Hito. I will personally tie him up. Dreg quickly revised his command. It was judged that if the battle continued like this, there would inevitably be unnecessary losses of the fleet. Dante and the Dragon Knights give up and try to end Hito. As the flagship Baryon's bridge opened, Hito leapt to the bow of the next ship and caught his breath. The gazes of the two people collided between the ships. The shelling stopped. The flagship Baryon was no longer firing at Dante and the dragons, and the red thunder that colored the sky was fading away. Finally, the captain himself comes forward. The world on Earth today is truly amazing. If you are surprised, quietly go underground again and live as if you were dead. As long as there is a Bamul alliance, the Jiakmyong people will never become the losers of this world again. I don't understand. Is there any reason for someone like you to risk your life to protect this insignificant fortress? The humans and dragons we originally wanted to take are nothing more than pieces of meat with no value compared to you and the Sword Emperor. I am a person who is accustomed to protecting things. Why did you let Jiam Wang run away? If we had given up on the other humans and dragons, we would have been able to run away together. Isn't that the obvious reason? The Emperor went to call for reinforcements. The owner of the name that the Jiakmyong people fear the most. Jean Runkendal. From what I heard from Reikiman and his compatriots at Patlock Fortress, he is definitely a problematic person. Are you confident that you can hold out against me and the fleet until he comes? As much as you want. Okay, you have enough power to think like that. But unfortunately, the problem is that the opponent is me. It is time to wake up from the illusion. The moment Dreg finished speaking, Hito intuitively felt danger and raised his sword. It seemed like a surprise attack. If it was a surprise attack that started from the front like this, Hito would have been able to stop it even if the opponent was the Liao dynasty. So he thought he had blocked it, but it felt like something cold was passing through him. What? I couldn't see anything. Was it my mistake? I quickly tried to wake up all the senses in my body, but I felt nothing. There were no cuts or blows anywhere on the body. But the next moment... Blood? Blood! Hito could visually see the blood draining from his body. For some reason, blood droplets were spreading all over my body and floating into the air. Hito was shocked and formed a protective shield, but the blood dispersed into particles, ignoring physical force, and escaped the shield towards Dreg. Dreg smiled as if he had anticipated Hito's reaction. Vampire. Before I was sealed, many immortals and mortals in the world called me that. Vampirism was Dreg's unique ability as a great fighting king. Hito instinctively threw himself to the ground to increase the distance. As the distance increases, the speed of blood loss has definitely decreased. There will be no answer if we fight at close range. The problem was that Drek had more than just power. Why are you suddenly anxious? It's urgent to increase the distance. Dreg was on the ground before Hito and was swinging his spear. Hito managed to avoid the spear but had to make sure that more blood was lost than just before. It may not be noticeable right away, but if things continue like this, movement is bound to slow down soon. Beyond that, I could have faced death. Moreover, the fleet was retreating, widening its ranks following Drek's orders. Soon the ship will start firing again from a distance that Hito's sword can't reach. If I stick to him, he will bleed faster, and if I move away, it will be easier for the fleet to hit me. It was a dilemma. It looks like he's given up on Jiam Wang anyway. so the only thing he can do is hold on until Jianwang gets far away to a safe area, and then run away. Anyway, when Jean arrives, he will find out the escape route and come after him. Drek saw through everything. He probably chose to hold on and then run away. However, our fleet is capable of precisely striking only you even if you and I fight together. I saw earlier that you could withstand artillery fire with just your bare body, but will you be able to continue to do so? Hito did not respond but stepped back, scattering his swords. I felt like I had a strange sensation of blood rushing around my body. It was not easy to find the distance where blood is not absorbed. Dreg's spear continued to explode with red lightning impeding Hito's movement. In order to respond, if I had no choice but to join Drek, more blood would inevitably be sucked. What a disgusting ability! Drek stretched out his long tongue and licked the blood that had dropped in the air. Oh, it's really rich blood. Can't even be compared to the knights and dragons I was originally trying to eat. Today I and my compatriots will celebrate with your blood, Hito.